All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another awesome episode of Free Academy Live. It's Jared Reyes, and I have Jeff Rodriguez here with me. This one will probably be a pretty short episodes, but wanted to talk a little bit about minimum wage and had a little bit of inspiration. I made a joke on Facebook saying that Bernie Sanders wants to increase minimum wage to $15 an hour, but he only pays his interns $12, which is a story that's going around because actually on his website, he had on the FAQ page for interns, he had the $12 an hour income literally right next to a picture of his rally to raise minimum wage to $15 an hour. So they were right next to each other, which is part of the reason it was so funny. They've since taken that down, not surprisingly. Anyway, so I made the point, and some people came back saying, well, his plan has raised it to $15 an hour over a 5-year period, which I was aware of, and that is true. But I guess I found it humorous that if someone who's in an interview states that anything under $15 an hour is a life that lacks dignity, I found it strange that he himself would then wait for his plan 5 years later to give his own employees dignity and not offer that up for them today, because apparently it's egregious to do so. I don't know, Joe, what are your thoughts? I found this to be a humorous retort to my statement.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's inconsistent, right? So part of this goes back to that I don't think that there is an economic basis for this $15 an hour. That sounds good. And I'm sure it's hard to be poor. I've been poor, I've been let's eat ramen for a week or this month because rent's expensive,
Mm-hmm.
I've been there and I've made much less than, $15 an hour. But it's that it is hypocritical for sure that it's going to be phased in. It's an excuse, right? Like, it has really nothing to do with the point. Like, this guy wants to raise federal minimum wage to 15. Is that correct?
Yeah, like that's part of his platform is to increase minimum wage to $15 an hour, and his plan is supposed to phase it in over a 5-year period.
Yeah, so I mean, just dip your toe into the water of this. There's no economics behind this.
No.
So for instance, they did that here in Seattle. They started out, I think, in SeaTac, that little area, raised their minimum wage to $15 an hour, which is mostly hospitality employees, from my understanding. Then you had Seattle proper, I believe, actually raise their minimum wage to 15, and that is phased in. And I think they had the same problem. The group that was looking for that 15 was looking for an intern for less than $50 an hour. And there's an economic reality here that those skills, that the price for those skills is just not that high. In addition to does it actually generate that amount of value? That's the actual the economics that matter. But yeah, there's a certain hypocrisy there.
Yeah.
To say, oh yeah, we're going to phase it in. Well, okay, you're phasing in, but you're really missing my point if you think that's the response. Like, we're not on the same page here. That's not why it matters, right?
Yeah, well, it's crazy because the legitimate counterpoint to I guess to saying they're phasing it in, and me kind of saying, well, if you think that's what dignity is, why are you going to give your employees a life without dignity for 5 years before they get there? But the legitimate counterpoint to that maybe is that $15 5 years from now, maybe that equates to $12 today, or there's an inflation factor that makes it not as ridiculous. But what I would disagree is I don't think that's Bernie's statement. I don't think that's what he's saying. I mean, $15 an hour is already a minimum in certain states, so it's not ridiculous to think that he thinks that's an appropriate wage now. But on top of that,
right.
I saw in an interview him state in a present tense, he said, I think anything below $15 an hour is a life without dignity. To me, implies he's talking present tense, and he knows the only way he can get this passed and for businesses to get on board is this 5-year phase-in period. I don't think that has anything to do with the agenda he wants to push. He just recognizes that for businesses to get up to speed if he didn't allow some sort of phase-in period.
Yeah.
This ever happening is zero. But I like
exactly.
There's no economic basis for this idea of minimum wage. The reality is, if I'm forced to pay someone more than the amount of productivity they produce, no business owner is going to hire someone and lose money on having an extra employee just to do it. No one's going to.
Oh, it's really easy if you're a small company. Yeah, if you're a small company or a sole proprietorship, it's really easy to see. Like, I myself am at the point where, like, you know, I'm getting into 3D printing. I'm at the point where, like, I might want to hire someone to help me with these, but that only makes sense if they can produce more than they cost me, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm hiring someone because they can help me out and we can get more orders out the door or something, right? If I hire them and actually cost me money to do that, like, it has to free up my time, right? That calculation is how much is my time worth versus how much can I hire them for? Yeah, I have to value my time higher than them to make that to hire someone, to make that make sense. And you know, if you support a minimum wage, I got to wonder, have you ever hired anyone in your life for anything aside from, like, you know, a service that's what they're offering and you're paying their rate, right?
Yeah.
Whatever that service is, that's their minimum wage for that service. It's this idea that you're supposed to have a weird idea.
Yeah,
no, sorry, I'm rambling.
No, I mean, that's what these are for. No, it just doesn't. There's the economics of it don't make sense, like you said. So here's the thing. So I had a financial practice for a 2-year period. A lot of those other people with financial practices, you know, they had assistants, for example, and assistants are getting paid. I'll just put a number on it. I don't actually know, so I don't want to speak for what they're paying their assistant. But I'll just let's say $35,000. Mm-hmm. When they choose to hire on that assistant, the calculation they're doing, and by the way, it's not just $35,000. If she's making $35,000, they're probably paying close to $40,000 because they have to match all of her taxes, you know, her payroll taxes. The employer pays that
7% of hers. Yep.
Yeah, and she pays it, and then they have to also pay it. So let's just say they pay her $35,000. It's costing them $40,000 when you include all the taxes and benefits and whatnot.
Sure. And if they're a large business, now they have to cover her health. They have to.
Yeah. And so
sorry, you're probably smaller companies.
No. It's good points. So it's costing the individual $40,000 for this assistant a year. The only way they're going to make that decision if they say this assistant is going to free up so much of my time that I can now make at least $40,000, if not more, in revenue because I have extra time. If I can't, then I'm not going to hire that assistant because making more revenue doesn't matter to a business owner. They want to make more profit. So it doesn't matter that her having it here, maybe she adds $20,000 to my revenue. It doesn't matter. My profit takes a $20,000 hit in that scenario. All that matters is, do they produce more value than they cost? If the answer is no, no business owner is going to hire them. If you're worth $12 an hour in productivity, but I have to pay you $15 legally, I'm not going to hire you because what business owner is going to lose $3 an hour just to do it? No one's going to do it.
The flip side of that is that when you put these minimum wages in place, that calculation shifts, right? So you would make the decision not to hire someone if it was before the fact. But now we're talking after the fact. These people have been hired, and now we've shifted. So say someone's getting $12 an hour, right? We've made that calculation, and it's worth it for me to hire someone at $12 an hour.
Yeah.
And it may not take a lot, right? The margins on a lot of, I mean, retail is like what, 3% on most of the stuff they sell.
Yeah.
You know, it's not that much margin there to hire that person or bring that person on to gain that extra profit, right? And then that calculation shifts from a change, you know, in the Burns plan, and you know, that's $3 extra now. Okay, you know, I understand that inflation has gone up. Our money is all worth less. Yeah, that's all of us. Well, you know, welcome to the club, man.
I know. Thank the Fed for that.
Yeah. There's a money problem. This is not that, you know, you need more money. Your money is worth less. Let's deal with that problem.
Yeah, it's not the businesses that are screwing people over with inflation. Let's attack the root with the Fed before you just punish businesses and overinflate their costs even more.
It's addressing a symptom, right? Like the minimum wage thing, it's a couple of things, but one of it's definitely a symptom. of bad money, right? You have bad money. Okay, do you need more of it? Okay, you need more of this bad stuff. What is it? Look into that. Ask that question. Where does that come from?
This isn't the minimum wage is not the cause of the problem, right? Not the cause.
That's not entire.
It's that it's running rampant in comparison to wage growth, but that's happening because of the Fed. That's not the business owner that.
Right. Yeah, we're being robbed at an increasing rate.
Yeah. Dramatically increasing.
Yeah. So if you can't, I mean, that's why the economics is so important, man. If you can't recognize that we're being robbed at an increasing rate, like, you know, you're gonna be looking around for like, oh, that's broken, that's broken, that's broken. Yeah, there's lots of stuff broken because we're being robbed.
You're trying to duct tape all this other crap instead of treating the illness. It's kind of like taking Tylenol because you have a headache. Let's say you have the headache because you're dehydrated. It's like taking Tylenol so you don't feel the headache, but not drinking water. You're
like, oh yeah, I'm good now.
You're just masking it. But the thing is, and the minimum wage doesn't even mask it well. It actually causes a tremendous amount of work.
Yeah, it's bad. It's really harmful.
So it's not even the equivalent. Tylenol makes way more sense in that example. But the sad thing is the only way to legitimately increase wages, and the reason why the U.S. has historically been so good about increasing the wages of you know, basically America at large over time, is you have to increase the productive capacity of the individual. And the way you do that is through investment, through, you know, capital expenditures and things that make people more productive. The only way you can legitimately increase the wages of a worker is to increase their ability to be productive. And that happens primarily through technology, through innovation, etc., procedures, whatever. And the U.S. has been great about that. You can't artificially force people to be worth more than their productivity.
No, it's thermodynamics, man. You can't get more you know, energy out of a system than it's there. All you can do is use that energy more efficiently.
Yeah, and what if someone recognizes there's people out there that would know, look, I know I'm not worth. It's too hard to find a job for me and my skills at $15 an hour, but I'm willing to take 12. But legally, even if I want to take 12 because $12 an hour is better than no dollars an hour, it is now illegal if I want to do that voluntarily.
It's illegal.
It's crazy. It's crazy because some people recognize, like, it's just their skills. They struggle to find a $15 an hour marketplace for them, but they recognize.
Well, it's not just that problem occurs all along the spectrum, right? So we start out at zero, and people would like to think we start out more than that, but really we don't. Like the best we have is we have some physical labor that we can do. Right, we can think, we can reason through some problems. That's really the most valuable thing to people, is reasoning through problems. Like this physical labor thing, that's about to go the way of the dodo, right? With that's the humans need not apply thing, which again is a little bit devoid of economics itself. But you know, it's making people more efficient, and you know, building up this capital goes into certain hands, right? Like if you have to build up your own capital, right? Like, so say I'm digging a hole with my hands, I have to invest some capital to get a stick and a shovel and, you know, work my way up to a backhoe. And that's not, you know, that's now my backhoe. That's not, you know, the community's backhoe unless they help, you know.
Yeah.
Whatever. I'm rambling again.
Yeah, I get it. And it's just, the economics doesn't make sense. I think where part of this comes from, though, why this is a popular idea, because it blatantly ignores the fact that payroll is a business expense, and that increasing that is either going. The reality is, what's going to end up happening when you do this is the people who have already been hired previously that aren't worth $15 an hour, they get let go. Yep. Then
if they start at the bottom first, right? They start at the bottom of the totem pole, like that.
Who already
you're the guy. It's how fat is your margin, right? The guy with the smallest margin, he goes first.
Yeah, and the smallest margin might be negative when they bump it up.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, there are people who are, right. There's jobs that it is a cost. Like support is a really interesting. Like tech support is a really interesting example in this. Tech support for most companies is largely seen as a cost. Yeah. And really, one of the few to turn it around was GoDaddy. When you call support, you're talking to a salesperson who knows technology.
Yeah.
And that's worked really well for them. But for most of the company, like that was their thing. We're going to turn this around. That's why they're the number one, poster and all that jazz today. It's normally a cost. Like, it's negative. It costs a company to hire you. You don't make them any money. You're just dealing with the broken stuff that comes up.
Yeah.
Versus a salesperson, right, who's actually pulling in sales. But in a company, it's a combination, right? He doesn't make sales. It doesn't, and no one's calling you if he's not selling. So there's interaction in there. It's that interrelated network, economy thing. And when you look at like minimum wage, it's just this totally external thing. We're saying it has to be that. Why? Well, dignity.
Yeah.
All right. So
it's the calculation they're using to say that that's what people are deserve. This idea that people deserve.
You can make it up, right?
Yeah.
You can set that bar anywhere you want.
I think
not $1,000. That $1,000 an hour makes the absurdities of minimum wage very clear, right? Because you can say, oh yeah, you couldn't hire that guy for $1,000 an hour. It's right there in front of you. It's a little less. Then you have to get, I think, into, okay, how do you pick a number? So the number doesn't matter. It's the same thing. It's just really obvious when the number's big.
Well, yeah.
Now, how do you get that? How do you get that small number? They go out and I think survey like how much does it cost to live here.
Well, I think part of it's like they do some weak or weird calculation on inflation. In theory, I think that's at least would be the easiest to.
It wouldn't surprise me if there was some bolted on there. Yeah.
But the weird thing is, I think the support for this comes from the idea that business owners are these greedy people who are hoarding profit, and that even though most people recognize that that this is an increased cost for the business owner, what they say is the greedy business owner is hoarding profit, and all we're doing is we're cutting into some of the profit, and that's just I don't understand that perspective because. One, without that business owner, those jobs aren't there to begin with, number one. But number two, the business owner, everyone discounts this giant risk the business owner takes in the beginning to start a business when 8 out of 10 fail.
Yeah.
There's a huge risk you're going to
So there's
got to be an incentive.
The people there who are least going to recognize that are the Marxists, right? The real, like, really, I'm not, using that pejoratively, but the people who are Marxists.
Marxist friend that's adamant.
And they... I don't want to. I want to represent their opinion as I understand it accurately, right? And that is that pick where, but I guess I'll highlight the difference. If that business folds, the employee walks away. You're not investing in a business unless you have something else other than your paycheck. You're not investing in a business. It's just the same as you were helping out friends and, bootstrap their business. It's not like you get part of their profits, because you help them open, right? Like it was pizza, right? Was the deal. Pizza and beer was the deal for helping us paint the pizza shop. You didn't invest in this place, maybe emotionally, right? Yeah. Like you're going to benefit psychically from this business doing well because you you painted that wall or whatever. But, materially, no. Like there was no agreement that you owe anything, or owed anything for your investment in the business or whatever. And with the employee, your whole transaction is as rented labor, which is that's what I do. I'm employed. I have a 9 to 5. I have an employer. I rent my labor out to them. And maybe there's just a different viewpoint. Like I have an empowering viewpoint, I think, from it, right? I can leave this anytime I want. I'm here at my pleasure and their pleasure. And as soon as either of us is not happy, I can leave. And I can go do this on my own. I can sell my own service, right? I have the means of production, right? It's my laptop. I can do my job. I'm in my house. I'm working in a couple hours after we get off this call. Yeah. So it's not, I think it's looking at it just like an employee and never like an employer.
Yeah.
If you look at it like an employer, the minimum wage thing falls down immediately. You're like, oh, well, I can't hire those people. Well, I guess I don't hire them, or I fire them if they're employed right now. It sucks, but I mean, nature's a harsh bitch, and we're living in it. We're trying to scrape our way out of it.
Well, yeah, and it's just yeah. I mean, it comes back to the notion that the employer's hoarding profits and that they're evil, and maybe even to the extent they're making giant profits. And it's like, okay, some companies make a lot of profit, but that's pretty rare. I mean, these small businesses, which are still the vast majority of the U.S. economy, contrary to belief, most of them, I mean, they make they make a low six-figure salary if their business is successful, right? But they still have tons of risk for that six-figure salary, and I'm saying low six figures generally.
I think that puts them in. I think doesn't six figures put you nearly in 1%? It puts you at least.
I know, but I think a lot of these people that are like most vocal about this have, they're my friends that have degrees that are setting them up to also make six figures potentially, and then they're going to view the business owner as greedy for making a similar salary, and they want to take money from his pocket on behalf of minimum wage earners. But then they're going to go into fields where they're making the same amount of money, and they're not going to think that amount of money is egregious or evil when they're making it. And that's the first. It's like they're attacking Apple because Apple makes billions in profit. Well, Apple's huge and it employs a ton of people. You're misconstruing the idea of profit by saying that because Apple makes billions, it's horrific. Well, quit buying Apple. They all have Apple cell phones too. So it's like you're going to criticize the company, then they're going to support them, and then they're going to claim it's evil. It's like, no, you don't
have a leg to stand on.
It's drives me nuts. It's hard to understand for me, but anyway.
For what it's worth, I do think a big part of it is the definition. The definitions of what capitalism is. Like you and I know the two, at least two different definitions of capitalism, two popular definitions of capitalism. We run across that one a lot. But just a little bit of hype, man, goes so far. Like, it's actually really hard. This thing is a big machine, and no one's in charge of it. And people say they're in charge of just fakers. Man, a little bit of hype goes a long way.
Yeah, no, it's it's just numbers, and I feel like people they think it's inhumane, or it's like every business is colluding to underpay employees. But when you look at the businesses that are typically paying minimum wage, they're very low margin business and they're very low skilled typically. When you can train someone with very little English, for example, in 1 or 2 days to do a specific job because it's just a repetitive task, that's very low skill labor, and they're not trying to rob anyone. Franchise owners, for example, if we go to fast food, they're typically making between $100,000 and $150,000 per year per franchise. That's not a ton of money, considering that most of them put up about $2.5 million as far as the debt they take on to open that franchise to begin with.
And most of them fail.
Yeah, and most franchises, contrary.
So that's a losing bet, right? Like how much do you know?
Yeah, how many people are going to take a $2.5 million risk to make $100,000 to $150,000 a year, and then imagine playing every employee. You're not just taking a few dollars an hour from their pocket. It's a few dollars an hour times however many employers times the whole year, and you're subtracting that from their very reasonable salary when you consider the risk they took to open the business to begin with. I just don't see how it's not this greedy, and they think it's collusion. They think every small business is colluding to underpay employees, because the reality is if they were worth more, someone would pay them more, and they would take this thin crust of slightly more productive workers, and they would benefit from that. It makes no sense.
And here's the thing, right? Like, if you there's a reason that the folks with that opinion don't have the resources to hire people, right? So I'm almost wondering if they're stuck in some, I don't even know what you'd call it, but just stuck in like a gyre almost, right? Like, you're just never going to get out of here because you're not trying the things that will get you out of here to try something else. You can never, you need some capital to hire people. And that's when you learn, like, oh, okay, like I only have limited capital to spend. I don't have a bottomless pit of capital. Like, there's no the Capital One card doesn't come with like a balance on it to start with, right? Like, you got to pay that motherfucker back.
Okay.
So, I don't know. Sorry, I'm dropping F-bombs on your live broadcast. I hope.
Oh no, you're good. We're I don't understand why curse words are a thing anyway. Curse words only exist because people think they do. I don't understand how saying sex or something is saying fuck. I just people swap them out because why? I don't. And it's not even
know exactly what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not even in. It's just conveying the same meaning. I mean, I don't. It makes no sense to me. But yeah. So no, we're a very curse friendly broadcast here. You're all good.
Awesome.
Well, I think we touched on some of the main stuff. I just wanted to get out some quick thoughts and touch on minimum wage a little bit because it's becoming more and more relevant as the election process goes on, or I see it more. I mean, I'm not going to vote either way. I don't participate in.
Oh, it's a populist thing, right? Because I mean, how many people are at minimum wage? You know, like all of a sudden you just bought all those voters. Maybe, you know, but I mean, it's just vote buying. Like, here's some free shit. You know, vote for me.
Well, yeah, it's very,
it sounds good, right?
Yeah. When they
and if you don't know, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the youth overwhelmingly votes Democratic when you can mobilize them because the Democratic Party hits on things that youth are going through. They say free college, and a lot of youth have college debt that they're either about to take on or already have, and so that's appealing. Ooh, yeah, that would be nice if that was free, right? And they say, well, minimum wage, and all of the youth is still pretty close to times when they used to work for minimum wage, or they got a college degree and the workforce or the labor market wasn't good enough for them to get a career and they're working for minimum wage. So they're like, hell yeah, I want more money because I got to pay down these massive student loans.
Yep.
I mean, it's just this big grab of the youth vote. But the sad thing is if Bernie gets elected, he's not going to be able to do any of this. Like they're going to renege on all this, but they're mobilizing the youth to win the election, and then they're going to renege on it. Just like every other candidate that's ever made these pitches has basically done. But also, like what's the chance he's going to be better? But the sad thing is he's probably not going to win in the primaries. So then if Hillary goes, then all these people who are Democrats and have been trash talking Hillary and saying how stupid she is are then going to vote for her just because she's got Democratic on her nameplate.
Maybe. So that's one good thing. So even though I don't think Bernie, and to be honest, I don't know a terrible lot about him. I know enough that I'm like, I don't think this guy knows economics.
Yeah, it's economic laws for sure. Those are
Well, I will say that most of the tweets we see from Bernie are from his staffers.
Right, who advocate, like they've well thought out. They've done polls or something. They've well thought out these positions. So
they're thought out. From
like
they're devoid of. Sorry,
I was just gonna say that's thought out from getting at votes, but not necessarily. They're not doing the math.
The math isn't there to like, oh yeah, this is totally possible, or no, that's mathematically impossible. We're just liars. We're not lying if we never looked. We're just wishful thinking. I mean, it's I suspect. So I wonder if what will happen with Bernie is kind of the same thing that happens with the Ron Paul folks. So I will say I think Ron Paul is a hell of a lot better than Morpheus. He's a much more educated, at least, I don't know. I agree with his economic reading more often. Ron Paul.
Oh, Ron. So, I didn't know you said Rand.
No, not Rand. I'm sorry, Rand. I just don't feel it. It's a little bit too at the end there, throwing that ring in, and I'll keep that.
Yeah, a little warmongery to me compared to Ron, but
but so one of the good things that came out of the Ron Paul thing is I don't know how intense you were into it, but I was going to precinct committee meetings, and like I learned what a precinct committee meeting was. That if you think you're going to vote your way out of this and have never been to a precinct committee meeting, you are dreaming.
No,
gotta at least know what one of those is and go to them to have a chance in hell of voting anyone you want into office. So what was useful is when we went to those things, we saw like the dirty tricks that can happen. And you know, like that's where I lost my faith in voting, right? Is getting really into voting and getting really into the electoral system. Be like, okay, what's it really going to take to win? And you're like, oh, it's just dirty tricks. Like you just make some shit up and like put it on the news, and there you go. Okay.
Yeah, like didn't they change the primary rules last minute on him to?
There was a lot of bullshit that went on. Let me put it that way. A lot. I was like that. It was that, you know, that whole series of events where I'm like, this is not at all what I've been taught that it is. This is a system for gangsters.
Yeah, you know, it's like
so that's
the no breathe weekends or what? What is it? You can't say no, blazer or whatever.
No refusal.
Yeah, so you never have a right to be, if the government can selectively take it away from you whenever they choose, right? You never had it to begin.
Yeah, it's not a right.
And it's like the same thing with you know, this voting thing. It's not really a right if they can change the rules to benefit them at their own will, which they claim, which they can.
Yeah.
What's
only let us? Yeah, they hold the seats of power, right? And it takes more than one election cycle to get them. It takes several election cycles to get into the seats of power, which I saw. I mean, we tried to do through the Ron Paul campaign. Like, oh, there's the seats of power over there. We need to go sit in those fucking chairs.
Yeah.
And it's more than one election season to make that happen. And it takes a lot of movement. So, you know, I don't know. I don't think either of us fall into that boat too much. But so the good thing is that we might see when Bernie loses and all the shenanigans go on, because he does seem to have some popular appeal, which, you know, his policies aside,
he's nice.
People being disillusioned about how the system works, I think will only be good.
Yeah, I mean, I think he does have an appeal, and it's because he seems nice. He seems really genuine. He seems
if you didn't know economics, Bernie would be great.
Yeah, because he really does come off as a very humble, genuine guy.
Totally.
I don't think I dislike him as a person. Maybe I do, because it depends on how aware he is that he's misleading people. That's always hard to know.
Stupid or evil, right? Yeah. That spectrum.
But he comes off as so genuine, so nice. And I get his message, because when I was a dumbass in 2008, I got wrapped up in Obama, and I was like, you know, I didn't even really know what I wanted, but man, change sounded good. I knew I didn't like what was going on, so I was like, yeah, let's do this change thing.
I voted not Bush, right? Yeah. My first vote was not Bush.
Yeah, and I mean, Obama let me off my feet. And by 2012, when he came around again, I was like, no way in hell. I see through. It was my first experience really seeing through all the bullshit that I got caught up in 2008. And I have a hard time believing that. But I get why it's a popular appeal, you know, because Bernie's running on very similar ideals as Obama, but he's not cool. He seems humble and chill and older and like this older gentleman, you know, and he's got this way of talking that's very nice and sweet sounding. And I get how people get wrapped up in it. So it's nothing personal really, specifically. It's just I don't think the math doesn't add up. And I think he's exaggerating.
Yeah, no, Bernie the guy seems okay. Like as a dude, like, you know, like if we had different, you know, views on economics, like I, you know, might very well want that guy on my team.
Yeah. I definitely have a beer with him. Like, he just seems like a nice guy. I have no qualms with that. And I poke fun at him because I see inconsistencies, like with Uber, for example. The Uber's an easy one that I got made fun of for bringing up because, you know, are you familiar with what he did with Uber, I guess?
Well, he was riding around in an Uber, right? And like, and talking smack about Uber, like Uber's bad in an Uber.
Yeah, so that's the thing. So he talked on several occasions how Uber's unsafe because it's unregulated, and also Uber gets away with not paying a lot of the same taxes that the taxi companies pay through loopholes, right? But then he has to release his campaign expenses. And in his campaign expenses, 100% of his transportation costs were Uber. So he says it's unsafe for public because it's unregulated. And he also says that these crooks are getting away with not paying taxes through loopholes. And then he goes and supports them 100% for all his campaign travel. And it's like, so I called it out, and they're like, oh, this is what it's come to. You have to poke holes. That is. And I said, no, I'm just pointing this out because this is one of the easiest things to not be a hypocrite about. Just get anyone else.
It's blatant inconsistency.
Yeah, it's like it's so easy to avoid. And they're like, well, to be fair, his assistants probably are the ones who organizes transportation. I said, yeah, but if you really believe this, he gets in an Uber once and he tells his staff, don't ever make this mistake again. I want a taxi or a limo, anything else. I mean, it was so easy to avoid. And then he publicly released it in his campaign statements that he's 100% of the time on his campaign travel. When he needs a car, he's used Uber.
That's
At
awesome.
least previously, when it came out. Maybe he's changed now, but he was months into his campaign already. And it's
I've not had too many experiences with taxis, but my experiences with Uber have been fantastic.
I love Uber.
And that's how I get around downtown. I'm across the water from Seattle. If I need to go to downtown and get around, I use an Uber.
And if people say it's unsafe,
actually,
don't get in. You don't have to use it.
I have never ever felt so. I'm probably not the the best example. I'm 200 probably 30 pounds. Maybe not a great example, but I've never felt threatened getting into a car. Never once. I've been like, this guy's sketchy as hell. Never. They're just normal people driving a car.
Well, yeah, it's like, and there's nothing about what taxis have to go through, taxi drivers, in order to get their medallion and get certified.
Oh yeah.
It's going to make them.
It's a license.
Yeah, it's like, okay, think about driver's license. We all had to go through this process, but how many crazy drivers are there out there? Because, this test is way easier to pass. We all can cram for a test and BS a test. It doesn't mean you're a better person. Why enforce that on everyone? It's kind of like all these sexual harassment, like training and stuff you have to do when you get hired somewhere, and no one listens to anything. Everyone just clicks next, and then uses common sense to pass the quiz at the end. And then we all tell that's what she thinks jokes. It's not. It does no good. It's just an expense. It's just a waste of time. But don't take Uber away from those who love it. If you hate Uber, just don't use Uber. I don't get it. If it's dangerous.
I don't know if Uber goes away, we need a Silk Road for Uber. I'll see what I can do there.
I think it'll exist because Uber's right now it's considered the most valuable private tech company. It's like, they have so much money in Uber's success that I'm very confident even if it becomes illegal, they'll backdoor or something. There's just too much money in it now for
well,
you're like, okay.
So would you jump in a car from a Silk Road site? I probably would.
Yeah.
Like let's
be
real. It's probably my neighbors anyway. So
yeah, well, if it functions similar, meaning there's some sort of feedback loop, reputation-based, rating system. Yeah, I would jump in the car. There's also this notion that it's the government's job to protect everyone from everything.
Oh yeah,
and that's this whole regulate Uber. Half the argument is tax-based. The other half is because it's unregulated. It's got to be unsafe. Why is it who made it the government's job to protect everyone from everything? Why can't the individual decide for themselves? This feels safe. I like this. This doesn't feel safe. I don't like it. Like no one wants to take.
You know what my favorite thing there is? My favorite example of this is when you go to a friend's house to eat. Have you ever inspected their home? Ever?
Yeah.
For food safety violation. Not once. And if you did, they would probably be insulted. Probably rightly so. And if you found something, are you even going to do something about it or just not eat that thing? Or just politely not eat that thing?
Yeah.
Or, I don't. I appreciate food safety. Like, I want my business that I shop at to be food safe, but I've never had to worry about it at a friend's house ever.
Yeah,
So I don't need to necessarily be a huge deal. Like, if you just clean the house, which is probably cleaner than mine, that's fine.
yeah, and in the absence of things like the FDA, there would be rating programs and stuff that would come up, and they would rate these things, and they would probably do a much better job because their whole business model would be.
They already exist.
Good information.
You already have some of those.
Yeah, like
you have some of those, and we're actually at a time now. So here's part of it. What the internet has done. There's a really there's a guy I really like who does a talk, Clay Shirky. And his Clay Shirky, and his point is that basically what's the big talk that I love? Institutions versus collaboration. And institutions are really these social technologies we've created to solve problems. And now we have the internet that really solves those problems a hell of a lot better. And it's just a matter of time until the internet just eats the government's lunch in every regard. So you have the FDA, who really was a centralized organization, right, to do this, which was the most efficient way to pull that off.
Hold on a sec. I would keep going, but will you take off your video for a sec, because your audio is lagging with the video right there.
There we go.
Keep going about the FDA.
Yeah. So what was I saying? These organizations versus collaboration. So you're getting to the point where you and I can really edit a wiki page based off of what we know, whatever that happens to be, about a chemical or a plant or a drug or whatever. We can enter these things. I mean, you see this already. Like, if you look at I'll just go to the one that comes to mind, Dance Safe, right? I believe they actually have pictures of different club drugs, to say, we found these here at this time. They're this color, this shape, this emblem on them, and these are safe. Or here's what they contained, or here's what these other ones contained. Avoid this, aim for this. So, people, we're willing to take a certain degree of risk, right? Obviously, demonstrably. And we just need the tools to do that appropriately. So the FDA, I don't know that they're, for you and me, not worth anything. Yeah. I don't put any stock into anything the FDA says one way or another. Not really. I mean, I might go pull some nutrition facts, which is right. We stuck some stuff in a burn chamber and measured it. Okay, that's probably okay. Yeah. But their opinions on anything, this is an organization that I don't know if FDA does, but the United States government considers marijuana this deadly toxin with no medical use. Really? Yeah.
Well, I think the FDA is an interesting case, and I really want to do a whole talk on it sometime, because it's an easy and everyone seems to have personal interactions with FDA-based stuff, whether it's over, because everyone's taken something over the counter at some point. Yep.
They touch food and they touch drugs, OTC drugs. Yeah. So we've all
interacted with those at some point. We've all interacted with food, obviously, and so I like the FDA because it's obvious. But to trust, I think the problem with it is, in reality, the FDA saying this is approved, this isn't. If you look historically, they've made a lot of mistakes, a ton of mistakes. Mm-hmm. And that's going to happen whether they existed or not. People are going to rate things, and we're going to make poor judgments, right? The flaw is that having an FDA to begin with, one, you have to rob money from people to fund it. But number two is it gives people this blind trust where they don't think they have to. It's not, we have this overconfidence in their ability to protect us. And so people don't investigate what they're putting in their own body anymore. They say the FDA says it's okay, it must be fine, which would be good if they had a great track record. They do not have a great track record. They're not horrific.
Not even a good one, right? It's kind of,
they have a mediocre track record for saying what's safe and what's not. And what's worse is that they have a track record, and there's public documents to prove this, of being paid to push certain things through the system, regardless of their safety or not. But as
the flip side,
we approved, people won't investigate for themselves. They take it on blind faith that the FDA is protecting them, and that is a big moral hazard. More and over and above, what might come, as a consequence of there being no FDA and people having to take it upon themselves to be aware of what they're putting in their body.
So there is, which is probably better, honestly. So there's a talk, I don't remember who it was, but they brought up this point that there's at least two things the FDA does. Is that they give the thumbs up for certain drugs, but they give the thumbs down for other drugs.
And they block
how many
drugs.
Yeah. So and not just the cost, but like just say they thumbs down the drug, period, right? When there's some subset of people that might actually have helped.
Yeah.
Then you get into the cost to bring a drug to market. Which is one of the funny things about the whole patent argument too. Like, oh, it's really expensive to bring drugs to market. Well, you have an FDA problem.
Yeah.
That's another one of your problems you've made for yourself. Congratulations. Yeah. So I mean, there's that aspect too. Like, how many people today are not around because of the FDA, as a direct result of the FDA blocking certain drugs from coming out?
And who's to say if I want to look into the facts, if there's a drug that comes out to treat some sort of cancer, and it hasn't been tested very much, right? But I can look up the facts and see what the tests have done, what they haven't done, and decide for myself, do I want to put this in my body? Who else has the right to tell me what I can and cannot put into my own body? That's insane. And the argument for the FDA is that essentially people are too stupid to make that decision for themselves. It's that. Oh,
how many government agencies started out with that basic premise? People are too stupid to blank for themselves.
Well, the first one with the writing of the Constitution. I say the Electoral College would have been the first example of people are too stupid to know what they want.
You know what? There's times I go back and forth and wonder, like, are they right? Is there a certain degree to which they're right?
Socrates brought up. He was actually against a democracy. He thought that only philosophers were fit to rule or to make decisions, which is an interesting and one of the few points of Socrates makes. Although I'm with him, I don't like democracy because I don't think 51% the right to tell 49%.
It makes me wonder if, like, if we got Socrates and Rothbard in the same room, right? What would they have wound up with? Like, well, okay, we'll have our little FOQ&E over here, or our little little state business. But it just does its thing. Like, if you want something from the state store, to go buy it. Yeah. If there's some service they can provide, they'll come out and provide it. But so. I don't know. I'm rambling, but I am kind of running low on time here. I need to roll soon.
Yeah, no, I think we can wrap it up here. And I guess the moral of our whole position is that any problem the government or any government tries to fix, it inevitably ends up exacerbating that same exact problem.
It'll make more things for them to fix.
Yeah, it's just
it breaks it. Yeah, I'm sure there's a term to fit this. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I can't think of it either, but it always exacerbates.
Well, breaking your leg and selling you a crutch, and probably a license for a crutch.
Yeah, it's like we're scared of people stealing all of our stuff, so let's create a government that then promises to steal 50% of our income to protect it. It's like you're never going to have 50% of your stuff stolen all the time, right?
Yeah.
You might have some stuff stolen sometimes. So to protect you from that risk, we're going to promise to steal half your stuff at all times, and then and we're going to give you back some shitty services that some of them you like, most of them you could care less about, and sometimes you're still going to have your stuff stolen.
Yes. Yep.
Anyway.
It just makes me wonder if it's like just a bureaucratic cancer. Anyway, I'll for another time, bureaucracy and as a cancer of this organism. We'll have to chat about that.
Why don't you have the last thought and just kind of close us out here, and we'll go. We'll
so much pressure. Yeah, really grokking Hayek changed how you view the world. I'll put it that way. Really understanding what Hayek was talking about, and it helps if you understand chaos and emergence, because that's what he's talking about. I don't think the words existed to describe it at the time. Literally didn't exist to describe it at the time. But, read some Hayek. You guys, magic.
Yeah, Hayek's awesome. And then, although Mises is basically just Hayek, he's almost adopted everything Hayek said, and just I find Mises to be more digestible. But it's Hayek's the root source. So if you want to see the originator, go to Hayek. But Mises just seems his writing style is more digestible, in my opinion, less dense. And also he defines things.
I can see that. Hayek's pretty intense.
Yeah. But I think they basically agreed on everything, and Mises was an understudy.
Yep.
So Hayek's the originator, I think, of most of these, the way we talk about most of these ideals. So check them out.
Yep.
All those people out there who are minimum wage and government interventionalists, check out some Hayek. I think it's worth it. Or Mises. Von Mises is pretty dope too. Also, they have cool YouTube channels that for free that Mises Institute is one of them that talks about a lot of these ideas if you don't like reading and you prefer to listen to people talk.
So one funny thing while I'm here, you're talking about it. So the funny thing is, if you learn Mises, or if you learn, Hayek, for instance, I'm not sure about Mises, but if you learn Hayek, like that's what conservatives allegedly believe about economics. And if you understand Hayek, you'll know more about conservative economics than conservatives.
Yeah, no joke. Awesome. Well, I think we'll close out on that, man.
Yeah. Right.
Thanks for
All right.
with me, Jeff.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Bye, guys. Thanks for joining us.